Hi, I'm Michelle Mercurio. Welcome to the show where we interview people who have ditched their plan to pursue their purpose. Let's dive in. Welcome. Today I have Rebecca Thomas here. She is the founder of Not Another Diet. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So glad to have you here. We're going to have a little bit of an informal conversation today about who you are and what you do, and we're going to tell a few stories.
I'm down for it.
Fantastic. So we know you're a founder. What else are you?
I'm a 50-year-old woman. I've only ever worked for myself. I love mountain biking, and I spend all of my free time either outside or reading.
Fantastic. I know that you have many different identities, and I know you from a few of them. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it is that you are doing now. Let's start with diet culture.
Phew.
Let's get right into it. Talk to me a little bit about diet culture and why you founded Not Another Diet.
Well, I think what I wanted to do with my writing, as you well know, I started writing about my process many years before founding this company. And part of the reason that I ended up doing that was that I really wanted to help other people free themselves from what is essentially wrong, misleading, and damaging information. And it really wasn't until I abandoned the ideas of diet culture, which, by the way, permeate almost everything about how we think about food and weight and how to conduct our lives. It's truly infiltrated everything. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I started picking that apart and really seeing it for what it was, which was really a lens of selling you things that are incomplete or damaging or unnecessary. And I wanted to help other people sort of unshackle themselves from these ideas. And that's really how it all started. That was actually the basis of the writing and my approach and everything, was can you make progress on something important in your life? In this case, for me, it was food and eating and weight. But really, this process has created a baseline of how you change your life, period.
I think, though, that one of the things that you and I talk about is also doing it joyfully.
Yeah.
You've talked about joy being at the center of what meaningful progress looks like. So let's talk a little bit about joy and our lives.
Okay. I'm going to back it up, though, for a second, because I want to provide a little context for joy. I don't want it to sound a little bit, for me, it always sounds like, even I, after all this time, I really do have a joy-based approach to living. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that's important to understand is that when people want to make a change in their lives, what they've been taught is you have to dig deep. You've got to work hard. You've got to make this big Herculean effort. And that is what's going to bring you over the finish line. That is what I call total nonsense. That is actually not how it's done. That's how you make a deadline, but that's not actually how you make some fundamental changes in your life. And really, it's about what you can do in a day, and then what you can do tomorrow, and then the day after that, and how that all accumulates. And so what you're really talking about is the issue of consistency. How are you able to manifest consistency? Mm-hmm. And the very simple, very radical answer that I have for that is that you do things that are joyful to you.
Joyful doesn't necessarily mean happy, right? It doesn't mean
True.
that you have to be elated about everything. So what are some of the things that are joyful to you?
Well, it turns out either this is because I'm getting old or because truly the simple things in life actually are the most joyful.
Right.
I pursue time with friends. I am adamant about being in nature. Mm-hmm. Movement that I find really fun and interesting is joyful to me. That could be something as simple as a walk. I've become an avid mountain biker, and I really love that for different reasons. That's also joyful. But to your point about being happy, I'm not happy every moment that I'm on the bike. Sometimes it's really painful and hard, and I'm desperately catching up, or I've fallen, or whatever. Right. So joy is really about an approach that doing things that nurture your spirit. What feels like, and there's some simple ways to figure it out. Do you feel expansive after you've done that? I feel expansive after reading literature or poetry or taking a walk. I went foraging the other day for walnuts, as you well know, because then I talked your ear off about it. But that was a very joyful thing for me to do, and walk home and look at the sunset. I felt personally nourished by those activities. It just so happens I walked 7 miles that day.
You didn't feel it though, because you weren't doing it because you had a mind toward, I need to exercise, I need to move, I need to continue to, maybe move my body and do those types of things. You weren't thinking about that. You were really pursuing joy.
Yes, I don't know how I would have ever kept up with 12 years worth of daily exercise by saying I need to work out. It would never have gone on this long, never. And it doesn't mean that I don't work out. It doesn't mean that I don't make it difficult sometimes. But also, to your point about happiness, often when I go out for my movement practice, which is what I call it, is I don't necessarily feel all that happy. But I know that the activity itself will help me feel joyful. And there's one more thing about pursuing joy that I think is totally radical. It's this idea that you deserve it. That you can nurture yourself. You can get up in the morning and do things for yourself that are expansive, and you are creating a relationship to the self that no diet, this is why diet culture is so woefully inadequate. Do they talk to you about your relationship to yourself?
No.
Which is profoundly important. Right. The stories, you and I have talked about this many times, the stories you tell yourself are literally your operating, that's how you operate in the world.
Right.
You have to tackle these things, and by doing them in a way that nurtures yourself, you are slowly but surely changing your operating system.
So let's talk about the idea of self-care, because one of the things that you said with joy and happiness, when we're talking about joy and happiness, I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I deserve this. I deserve that champagne. I deserve the dessert.
Yeah.
Life is short. Eat the dessert. I'm not saying don't eat the dessert. What I'm saying is that we think that by packing on all of these things, that we are actually taking care of ourselves. And I think that sometimes what I hear you saying, it's the removal of some of these things.
For sure. And it's hard to argue with the don't have the dessert. If you have a dessert in front of you, I'll be the first to admit that I'm going to eat it.
Right.
I'm going to eat it. That's what's going to happen for a variety of reasons, not all of them necessarily self-care. What I think we've bought into is this idea of continuous consumption as self-care. And that is a hamster wheel with no end.
Right. Buy the massage, go get the nails done, buy the retreat, buy the food, buy the time. And
right.
It's more about, you don't have to buy the things.
You not only should you not buy the things, but I would say for a while set those things down, because it's really clutter in your mind. And then figuring out what comes up from that quiet and the solitude of that. For me, it's reading poetry, walking in nature. I understand these are very simple things. Yeah. Do I occasionally get a massage? Of course. You can add that, but these things the things that are consumptive should be on the periphery of your self-care routine. And self-care, by the way, I hate that it's been co-opted by consumer culture. It is actually a radical idea that you can go ahead and take care of the person and body that you are, this is a way, if you have been a trauma survivor, all kinds of things like that you've had difficulty in your life, I would pose to people to really think through the idea of how you can change the narrative of your life by taking care of yourself.
Absolutely, 100%. You create the story, and if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And I'm not talking about necessarily food consumption. I'm talking about if you let those thoughts in, if you let a story that isn't serving you in, if you don't take time to examine it. Those simple things that you were talking about, right? The walk or the poetry or the literature, those are the things that actually help us return inside and have meaningful joy in our lives. And
an outcropping of joy is the way you speak to yourself, self-talk, right? And that goes back to the thing that you and I talk about stories. And for anybody watching this interview, I think they would think, well, what does that have to do with weight loss? And what I would say is how you conduct your life, how you conduct the entirety of your life has to be addressed. These are life skills. The skills that bring me to my daily walk are not different from any of the other skills that I teach. What diet culture has done, bringing it back to the thing, is that it's taught us to myopically focus on food, specifically counting food, which I think is just horrendous. I would like to just say right now that if you want to take the joy out of eating,
right,
go ahead and log your macros. By the way, I still don't even really know what that means. Like, honestly, I don't know. You know, so 12 years into losing 50 pounds, I don't know and I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care about any of those things.
Yep.
That does not bring me joy to sit
No.
around in it putting things into an app. It doesn't mean you don't address these
Right.
things, but there are bigger ideas than what diet culture has, and that's what this is what my company is trying to bring to the market. There are bigger and better ideas about health, about weight, about diet culture, about all these things. There are
Right.
much better ideas out there than what is being presented to people, and I would like to be part of that dialogue.
So let's talk a little bit about body positivity.
Let's do it.
Here is the thing. I see this all the time. You know, body positivity has entered our vernacular in the past few years. Be positive about whatever size you are, whatever shape you are, right? Don't put negative thoughts on bodies. There's also the concept of body neutrality, right? So bodies aren't good or bad. I know a lot of, you know, women I know and people that I grew up, me personally, right, thinking, I've got this fat, I've got a bad body. So body positivity initially was really attractive to me. Like, oh, no, I love this body. This body has done a lot for me.
Yes.
So I'm very happy with this body. I'm also not wanting to put necessarily a good or bad label on it. But what I do see happening over and over again is this idea of body positivity kind of almost to the extreme. So let's talk a little bit about how you feel about body positivity.
Well, in its truest essence, I'm a huge fan. You know, my basic take on bodies is this, even though I have essentially a weight loss program, but it's really like how to be happy, to be honest, how that program is really. But I have no opinion on other people's bodies. I want to be super clear about that. I have zero opinion about other women's bodies at all.
Right.
It is for them to decide where they want to be, what health looks like for them. And I describe it as a healthy weight.
Right.
So what that means to me is that you're going to go on a journey, and I'd like to give you some tools to help you get there. But where that goes and where it ends, that is for you. That is your agency in the process. That is not my decision to make. But body positivity, it has some wonderful roots, which is, you know, I need body positivity.
Right.
I didn't lose 50 pounds all those years ago and then end up a bikini model, and now I have all, you know, like I have the things that aren't necessarily what culture thinks of as beautiful.
Absolutely.
And I love the idea of going ahead and saying, look what your body is doing for you. It is literally a vehicle for pleasure and joy. That's what your body is. So everybody deserves care.
Right.
I believe that deep in the deepest parts of myself. Where I have a divergent view,
Where do you draw the line?
where I draw the line is this idea of celebrating unhealthful behavior.
So let's talk a little bit about what that means.
Well, in the case of what I have observed, and we're talking about we're talking about Instagram stars who are fat positivity celebrities, which I also really haven't fully fledged an opinion on that, to be honest. But the way I think about what I have objected to is this overconsumption of obesogenic food. Obesogenic food would be things that are specifically designed to compel you to overeat. I've seen donuts, I've seen, really low quality pizza, I've seen all kinds of things, and it's sort of put up there as eating with abandon, and the results, who cares about the results? Well, let me tell you, now that I'm 50 and I've had breast cancer twice, which weight is a factor in having that, I'd like to tell you that I care. And I think I would have liked to have known that some of the things that I was eating actually caused my body to react differently and made life much more challenging. That is better information. That's not a personal judgment on bodies. That is better information about how to conduct yourself to have a long, productive, joyful,
Right.
healthy life. And eating half a dozen donuts doesn't make you a bad person, but please don't tell me that this is equivalent to good health.
Right.
It's not, and it has serious consequences for people's lives. So I think body positivity has been taken over a little bit by that. What I hope it goes back to is learning to love and care for the body you were given.
Right.
And without being told whether it's good or bad by any element of culture.
So I know you're changing your game and
Yeah.
transforming how people look at it within diet culture and body positivity. I want to know, who do you admire? Who are your heroes?
If you had asked me that 10 years ago, you would have gotten very different responses. But as I'm getting older, I am deeply appreciating older women and seeing them for the incredible resource that they are. They are a gift to society. We have tremendously undervalued the talent pool that is women over 40. And so I'm really interested in them. I love Frances McDormand because she's my North Star for what it means to solidify yourself as a person and to really stay immune to culture, frankly, just immune, just to be excellent all the time. I love Cindy Gallup, who is one of the business people I look up to. And she had a long career in advertising, but her words to other women about valuing themselves are so smart and so insightful. I've gotten a lot from listening to her, and really her advice about designing a business that suits your life was one of the very first times I ever heard that. And of course, you helped me do that. You helped me actualize that.
I love, though, how you had a plan, right? You had this plan of what it is that you wanted to create. You knew that you had this expertise, but then you kind of like ditched it. Like you ditched that plan of, this is where I am headed. This is how I'm going to do my next life. You're a serial entrepreneur. You've done so many different things, and then you really built a business from you.
Yeah.
And
super scary. Super scary. Which is the craziest thing, because I've only ever worked for myself. You'd think by this point the fear would have been mitigated. My God, I spent more than $500,000 opening a restaurant.
Right.
You'd think that would be scary. No, this was scarier.
Yes.
Because a restaurant has a template.
Yeah.
But this did not.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that was so useful in working with you. It was just that, all right, there's somebody who can help you build a framework around your ideas.
Right. But that's the thing. I think a lot of the times we look towards a framework and we think everybody's template is going to be for us, and it never is.
That's right.
We have to create our own.
That's right.
Out of what it is that we value and what we know.
And what is more radical than a woman standing up and saying, we are going to build a business solely off the power of my ideas?
Beautiful.
I love it.
I do too.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
I'm writing a book next year. Yep. So I want to continue to build the program. I'm more of a believer in slow growth. So what I'm doing at this stage, by December, it'll be my first year in business, which I'm very excited about. And I'm going to continue to grow the program. I want to do it with an eye towards quality and slow to moderate growth.
Right.
And then, but next year I'm writing a book, and then I don't know. I'm not sure after that, to be honest. I really want the book to be excellent.
Yeah.
And so that's going to take a lot of my effort. But that's the next year's plan.
Where can people find out more about you, about Not Another Diet, about things that are happening in Rebecca's world?
Yeah. So my website, notanotherdiet.co, not com.co. And you can find me on Instagram at This Is Not Another Diet. That's my handle. I took over the handle for TikTok. I haven't done anything with it, so we'll see on that one. Too many things. But the other is that I write a lot on Medium.
Right.
I have a solid Medium publication, which is actually where the foundation of my writing is, and I have quite an audience over there. So you can find me if you just Google This Is Not Another Diet. I come up as the first 3 or 4 links on that.
Perfect.
So,
And I definitely would recommend anybody who's watching this video take a look at what Rebecca writes, because it is life-changing and transformative, just like you.
thank you.
Well, thank you for being here today. I'm so glad that you joined us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks so much for joining me today. Go ahead and like and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you don't want to miss anything, click that subscribe button.